A severe lack of funds, conflicting death tolls, and politicians who have turned into patients. Iran's response to the coronavirus outbreak has little to no impact. And now there are even more worrying reports of mass graves being dug near the holy city of Qom. These are satellite pictures from Qom that show two newly dug burial trenches about 90 meters long. They were dug in late February when there was a sudden surge in infections in Iran, adding to the suspicions. This picture also shows a mound of lime right next to the trenches. Iranian authorities have already admitted to using lime to bury coronavirus casualties. There are reports that claim that lime actually slows the decaying process and prevents the spread of infection. So the question is whether Iran is downplaying the outbreak and manipulating the actual death toll.
More alarming coronavirus numbers are coming out of Italy. The country's death toll has crossed the 1,000 mark, did so as of Thursday, with the total number of cases now at over 15,000 there. Italy is already under a national lockdown, restricting citizens' movements and activities heavily. In a televised national address on Wednesday, Italy's Prime Minister announced that all retailers would be closed except for supermarkets and pharmacies. Italy is now the country worst hit by the virus outside China and certainly the most hardest hit in Europe. The Italian government announced this week that it's going to set aside some $28 billion to try and get a grip on the outbreak.
Sophie Gregoire Trudeau had been traveling in the United Kingdom. She was delivering some speaking engagements there. And when she returned, a few days after she returned, she started to develop mild flu-like symptoms. That was Wednesday night. Thursday morning, she got tested for COVID-19, and late this evening, she is positive. She has COVID-19. So as a result, she is now in quarantine for 14 days. She says she's feeling okay, a little bit uncomfortable, but nonetheless doing all right. But 14 days in quarantine. Most importantly, your husband, the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, is now in quarantine for 14 days. He'll have to conduct all of the nation's business from his home office using teleconference and video conference.
If we look at what's happened since in about the last 12 hours is that India declared its first death. The local state government from the state of Karnataka also said that this patient has tested after his death, like you mentioned, for coronavirus. And the problem is that this patient had been sick for a while, and he came from Saudi Arabia, was screened at the airport, probably not showing symptoms at that time, and maybe that's the reason why he got away. He was also transported from one city in Karnataka, which is Bangalore, to Kalburgi, which is the place where he belongs to, and that's where he lost his life.
Almost as soon as the closures were announced, there were protests. Both Greek and Turkish Cypriots have been demonstrating against the decision to close some of the island's border crossings. A few days later, Greek Cypriot police used pepper spray on protesters in the same location, in the heart of the capital, Lefkosia. 2 days later, people were back again, carrying red carnations as a symbol of peace and friendship. In February, the Greek Cypriot president tweeted this photo, stating his administration and Turkish Cypriot authorities would increase cooperation to combat the coronavirus. But at the end of the month, Nikos Anastasiadis announced the closure of 4 of the 7 crossing points without consulting Turkish Cypriot authorities.
U.S. military sources tell us that U.S.-led airstrikes are underway currently as we speak in response to the attack on the Taji air base that left 2 Americans and 1 British soldier dead yesterday. This is a response to the 30 rockets that were fired at the Taji base. We understand that there are airstrikes taking place as we speak in multiple locations where Iranian-backed Shia militias have both warehouses as well as this is an effort to basically disrupt their command and control, but it will be multiple locations. We understand it will be, we're told, a proportional response to the attack on the Taji base.
These scenes are guaranteed to pile more pressure on Malawi's President Peter Mutharika. 3 of the country's leading human rights activists are released from jail, granted bail after they were arrested for trying to organize protests outside homes of top government officials, including the president. They've been leading anti-government demonstrations since May's disputed presidential election. President Mutharika narrowly won last year's election, but claims of widespread irregularities have led to nationwide protests. Last month, a constitutional court ordered a rerun within 150 days. Parliament wants a vote in May, but Mutharika has yet to sign the bills into law to make it happen.
A border outpost in southern Turkey, a route into Syria and the rebel stronghold of Idlib, a region cut off from the rest of the world. These armed men are rebel fighters from the Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which is historically linked to al-Qaeda. These rebels control the province of Idlib, the only enclave that has not been recaptured by the forces of Bashar al-Assad. The region is also the final refuge for thousands of displaced civilians who have fled violence elsewhere in Syria. A local stadium completely empty. As a prime target for airstrikes, it's a huge risk. As a result, these women and children are taking shelter in the basement, where there's no running water and where only one humanitarian organisation passes by to supply aid, just from time to time.
The coronavirus was clearly on voters' minds in Paris as Agnès Buzyn campaigned in the city to become mayor. The former French health minister is the candidate for French President Emmanuel Macron's centrist party, Republic on the Move.
Some shopkeepers say there are fewer people on the streets. I think Parisians are being responsible.
Buzyn replaced her party's first choice, Benjamin Griveaux, in February after he stepped down following a sex video scandal. A latecomer to the race, opinion polls suggest Buzyn's trailing behind the frontrunners. One of the favourites is the incumbent. Socialist Anne Hidalgo is fighting for re-election, promising to continue her battle against pollution in the city by making it greener.
The 3 Italian tourists entered the country earlier this week at Havana's International Airport, and officials say they traveled to the south-central city of Trinidad, a major tourist center. After showing symptoms related to COVID-19, the Italian visitors were examined at a local health care center and later brought to a Havana hospital for further tests. They subsequently tested positive for the coronavirus.
Cuba has made available 2,400 hospital beds in 3 healthcare centers in a first stage, like this one, the Tropical Medicine Institute of Havana, where the first 3 cases have been hospitalized.
Cuban authorities have set up a prevention and control program to deal with COVID-19, including isolation facilities and the detection technology at airports and training of medical personnel and monitoring high-risk population sectors.